There you go.
Wow. Just a moment.
There you go.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started in just a moment. All right. Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar, Developing the Next Generation of Procurement Professionals, Arizona's Cronin Awards Finalist Project. Thank you for spending some time with us today. We're glad you're here. This is the first webinar in our 2021 Cronin Awards webinar series. Be sure to check out our upcoming webinars. Next Wednesday, November 3rd, join us for a look at an agile new approach to financing for procurement with Louisiana's installment purchase marketplace, which has allowed the state to obtain commodities as soon as they are needed while reducing costs. Then join us the following Wednesday, November 10th, for a look at the collaborative data-driven process that allowed Wisconsin to streamline their IT hardware procurements, saving time and money. Registration is open for those and all the webinars in the series. Visit www.naspo.org to register and look for the webinars tab on the left side of the page. We look forward to seeing you there. At the close of today's presentation, you'll be asked to complete a very brief questionnaire. Your feedback is very valuable to us here at NASPO. Today's presentation is good for one contact hour. To get your certificate, simply complete the questionnaire following the presentation. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to explain the format of today's webinar. All attendees are muted. You can enter comments and questions in the chat box. If you would like to ask one of our presenters a question directly, you can type it into the Q&A box at the bottom of your window. Questions will be addressed throughout the presentation and at the end. And with that, I'm very pleased to introduce our speakers today. We are honored to have with us Jill Pernice, Deputy Assistant Director of Operations with the State Procurement Office in Arizona. Jill has more than a decade of experience in state government, starting in the Governor's Budget Office, then the Arizona Land Department, and she's now in her 4th year with Central Procurement. Also, we have David Strayer, who is a senior at Arizona State University, a supply chain major who graduates in December. Early congratulations. He started in Central Procurement internship program in May of 2020 and transitioned into a full-time position as an operations coordinator in July of 2021. NASPO is grateful to have both of you here with us. And now I'll turn it over to you, Jill.
Thanks so much for that introduction, Chadwick. We really appreciate it. And thanks to everyone that was able to join us today. We're always very excited to talk about our intern program. We were very honored to make it as a finalist in the 2021 Cronin Awards. So we're looking forward to being able to tell you guys a little bit more about our program today. And hopefully we'll be able to get into a little bit more in-depth discussion than we were able to when we presented at the national conference. You'll have to bear with David and I. The state of Arizona is a Google entity. We do not use Zoom very much, so I'm a little technologically illiterate in this teleconference platform, but hopefully that won't be distracting from our presentation. So just a quick look at what we're planning on talking about today. So we'll spend a little bit of time giving some background, kind of what the state of the program was before we made these changes, what some of the data was that we collected, and some of the reasons why we did the things that we did, and our program is now what it looks like today. We'll talk about the improvement plan that we developed based on that data and kind of investigating that we did, the things that we decided we wanted to change. The meat of our presentation, we'll talk about the actual components of our program, what different pieces kind of make it unique and we found to work really well for us. One of the reasons I was really excited to be able to bring David with me, like Chadwick mentioned, David actually started as an intern in our program, came in at a very challenging time. He started in May of 2020, when the world was on fire a little bit. So he's had some really unique experience with us, and we were thrilled to be able to bring him on as a full-time employee earlier this summer as part of our team. So he's going to talk a little bit about what his experience in our program was like. We'll talk about what some of the results were of our program and some of the tangible benefits we've been able to realize from those good changes that we've implemented. And then we'll do a quick review with key takeaways. I anticipate we'll have plenty of times to do questions at the end, but also if something comes up as we're going through, like Chadwick said, please feel free to enter that either into the Q&A function or into the chat, and we'll try to get to those as they come through. So a quick look at today's learning objectives. So hopefully by the time we've gotten through this presentation, everyone will be able to identify and understand the tools and techniques that Arizona uses to recruit and train students through our internship program and produce new procurement officials, and also to adapt and apply some of those tools and techniques to meet your own recruitment needs in your own central procurement office. So we want to start with a little icebreaker. I know these are like the most painful thing ever when we're in person, but it's not too bad when it's virtual because we can't see you cringing. So we want to start with a quick poll to just kind of see where everyone lands. So the poll is up on the screen for you to see. So the question we're looking at is, does your central procurement office have an internship program? Yes, we have a program. We have a program, but we are looking to improve it. No, we don't have a program. We do currently have a program, but we might in the future. And I'm not sure, but I'm excited to be here. So if you could select your answer in the poll, and I'm anticipating once we close that, we'll be able to see the results. So I'll wait a few seconds there. This photo that we have on the right was from our group that graduated in spring of 2020. So this was the first group that we had that didn't get a real graduation. They were quite disappointed by that. So we did a virtual one with our group that was very well received, and we had a lot of fun recognizing folks and kind of some of the achievements that they had had while we're in our program. So it looks like from the results of our survey, about a third of our folks do have a program. That's really awesome to see. Another third does not. And thank you to the 2 folks that answered that they're excited to be here, even though they're not sure about their program. Hopefully you'll still be able to learn something from our discussion that you can take back to your central office. So a little bit of background about our program. So like Chadwick mentioned, I started with our state procurement office in Arizona in the summer of 2018. I took over the program at the request of our state procurement administrator in the spring of 2019. At that point in time, it had been run by several other individuals, and it was very well liked by the contract managers in our office, and it was not as equally liked by the participants of our program, which was problematic that we saw that big disconnect. So one of the things that we sought to do, just like we do when we overtake any kind of problem solving activity, is we wanted to gather some data and better understand why that was, what people felt about it, what were some of the areas that we could work to improve. So we did a couple of different surveys, and I'll show you the results of a few of those today. One of the first questions that we asked our full-time team members was, what do you think the goal of our internship project was? The results of this survey told us that about 87% of all of our full-time folks thought that our program existed to help develop young professionals or prepare them for a career at SPO. The thing that got a little bit funky about that is, even though that was the case, we really weren't doing a lot of work to develop them. We were having them make people's copies. take notes at meetings. I don't think they had to go get anyone's lunch or coffee per se, but it was more of those kind of menial administrative tasks that the actual interns just didn't feel like were that value adding to their experience and their development with us. So then we also asked our full-time employees, on a scale of 1 to 5, how satisfied are you with the current intern program? So this is before we made any changes. Overall, the majority of our folks scored the program at a 4, thought it was working pretty well, didn't really see a reason why we needed to make any changes. That was a pretty stark contrast to when we talked to the interns at the time and said, hey, how is the program functioning for you? Do you feel like you're getting valuable experience? Is there good information that you're gaining from this? We did a couple of focus groups, we did surveys, we did all kinds of different things, and we kind of summarized all of those different activities into this graph that you can see on the screen. So overall, our intern feedback showed that about 62% of our interns felt that the current program suffered from a lack of structure and consistency, and this really kind of highlighted that disconnect between the full-time employees and our intern group. I'd like to describe the program at the time as kind of being, I don't know if you guys ever read these books when you were a kid, but being a choose your own adventure, where there's like a decision at the bottom of the page. And if you want to eat the sandwich, you go to page 10. And if you don't want to eat the sandwich, you go to page 100. We had some interns that were very outgoing and personable at the time, and it was very easy for them to find those good opportunities and work with our contract managers and get that really meaningful experience. But that's not everyone's natural behavioral tendency. And for the folks that were a little bit more reserved and not as comfortable seeking out those opportunities, honestly, they really didn't get a lot out of the program. They didn't get much opportunity to shadow contract managers. They didn't get much opportunity to see the procurement process firsthand. We actually had a particular student that I'm thinking I have in mind who got to the end of his program and was having a one-on-one with Ed, our state procurement administrator, and told him, I don't feel like I learned anything. I've been here for 6 months and I've watched Netflix in my queue. There hasn't been a lot of opportunity. So that was really a big motivator for us to significantly rethink how we were doing things. How do we put something together that is meaningful for the interns coming through it, but also is very helpful for the full-time employees that are also wanting to utilize this help that's available. So based on some of the results that we got from those data collecting activities, we kind of had a reset and said, okay, we really need to clearly define what the purpose of our program is so that everyone is aware of this, it's visible to everyone to see. And also there are several critical areas that we want to work on making changes or improvements in. And so from that activity, we kind of agreed that we felt the goal of our program was twofold. Number one, to adequately prepare interns to successfully enter the professional workforce. Hopefully that was with us or some other public entity, but even if it wasn't, that they were good candidates that others could consider. And number two, that we did want to develop them as the future public procurement professionals that we would have in our offices in the future to work with us. And then we identified about 5 key areas where we wanted to make some changes based on that data that we saw and kind of what the experience was of the interns that were coming out of our program at the time. So first, we wanted to develop a more strategic recruitment process. We also wanted to facilitate more consistent program structures so that everyone had a very similar experience going through and that it wasn't a choose your own adventure that was kind of dependent on how easy it was for you to talk to people. We also wanted to look at creating more meaningful mentoring opportunities where we could pair students up with contract managers and there was really value-adding opportunities for them to have experience hands-on with that procurement process at the frontline level. We also wanted to enhance soft skills development and application. I don't know if any of you have ever had students come into your organizations. Sometimes you get really lucky and they're very polished coming in, but 9 times out of 10, we have folks that have never had to write a professional email before or deal with a work conflict. And we need to teach them how to deal with those things so that they can successfully enter the professional workforce when their time with us is done. The last thing that we wanted to work on was building a stronger collaborative relationship with our academic partners. For us, that's at ASU. We're very fortunate to have one of the top ranked supply chain programs right in our backyard, one of the top ranked programs in the nation. So we definitely wanted to take better advantage of that. and find a way that we could continue to strengthen that relationship with ASU. So the first thing that we'll talk about is some of the changes that we made with our recruitment process. The recruitment process that we utilize for our intern program, I would say, is much more robust than what I even use for when I fill full-time positions. We've gone through a lot of trial and error to find out what doesn't work, which is a very important lesson to learn sometimes, but also what does work and helps us get those best fit candidates. So typically in a given semester, so in the spring or the fall semester, we attend between 1 and 3 career fairs. We always do the supply chain career fair. That's kind of our main go-to. We've also branched out and started to go to the general internship career fairs. And also when it's offered, we attend public opportunity career fairs. I'm not sure what it looks like at other public universities, but the public job opportunities that are kind of promoted at ASU are very heavily public safety and criminal justice. So when we go to these, it's a great opportunity because most of the students there don't want to be cops or go work for the Department of Corrections. So there's a lot of interest from students to be able to talk to, a more regular type of agency that does things that kind of aligns with their interests. Not that those things aren't important, but there are a lot of options that kind of exist through that area. So obviously during the pandemic, those career fairs have transitioned to virtual, which has been a little bit of a challenge. So I think this semester is the 3rd semester that we've now done virtual career fairs, which is very different, but still very important. And we found good ways to be able to connect through students via that medium as well. One of the things that we really try to do when we're at these career fairs or we're interacting with students is highlight the benefits of working for the public sector. I'm sure many of you on this call have worked for the public sector for a long time. And, at some point, I think everyone kind of realizes there are things about working for the public sector that are what they are, and they're never going to change. We're never going to be able to be competitive with pay. I don't know of any state, county, city, federal entity that can compete with the private sector with pay. So we have to find the other things that we're good at as compared to the private sector that are attractive to some of our students. So we definitely promote a lot about how the work that we do helps people. It benefits the greater good. We aren't just doing work that ends up in some company's bottom revenue line or gives some CEO a $40 million bonus. We're in the midst of a pandemic. The work that we do has very tangible impact on important things that happen every day. And not to say that everyday procurement is a life and death situation, but the things that we do are important. Definitely during the pandemic when we had to step in and help some of our agencies, the work that we did have an impact on whether or not our Department of Child Safety offices had PPE available when they had to have children stay in the office overnight. I mean, the things are very real and tangible. And we're really seeing a positive shift in students where more people are interested in those types of things. We also talk a lot about the public sector having longevity. Not that the public sector doesn't ever riff or lay off people, but it happens much more infrequently than you might experience in the private sector. Definitely our market isn't quite as volatile in that regard. And there are students that are more interested in those things than just getting the highest paycheck that they possibly can. One of the other opportunities that's kind of unique that ASU offers that we absolutely love to participate in are mock interviews through the supply chain program. So students are able to sign up to do, I don't want to call them pretend, but practice interviews, where we treat it just like a regular interview situation. But the really neat thing at the end is there's time set aside for us to give them feedback. So it's a great opportunity for them to practice in a safe environment and for us to give very real feedback so that when they're in a situation where it's a job that they're interested in and they're actually being considered, someone's taken the time to tell them that you shouldn't chew gum while you're in an interview, or you shouldn't wear sweatpants joggers when you come to interview with someone. And we'll talk a little bit more about this later, but students just don't know, if no one's ever taken the time to give them that type of feedback, they don't know. So we really appreciate those types of opportunities for us to be hands-on involved in helping make improvements to students so they can be successful as they move into the professional world when they graduate. David, did you want to mention anything else about the way that we do our mock interviews?
Yeah, of course. So just like an overview of recruitment in general. As an intern, I assisted in multiple career fairs and was able to connect with a good amount of college students that are around my age. Whether it was one-on-ones with students, mock interviews, presentations, I've always found professional benefit out of helping with recruitment. So attending these career fairs from an employer perspective allowed me to see the operational side to career fairs that most students do not really get to experience. So by participating on the employer side, I actually gained exposure to not only having the opportunity to professionally represent our organization, but it's truly just a learning opportunity on how employers spot standout candidates. We get to apply our soft skills that we have learned. And overall, just getting hands-on experience with professional communication and getting an insight on career fairs from an employer point of view. So I really do appreciate that about our intern program.
Thanks, David. And I do see there's a comment in the chat too. Work-life balance is one that we talk about a lot too. That one's a little slippery. We have to be a little bit careful because a lot of folks come into these interactions with us with the stereotypical view that people that work for the government is lazy. So I hope that when we say we have good work-life balance, what students don't hear is that we don't work, because obviously that's not the case. But yeah, that is definitely a positive that we do try to promote to our students as well. One of the other really helpful tools that we've come across that I was not available existed prior to being involved in this program was a platform called Handshake. It's really similar to LinkedIn, but it's just for students and recent grads, and it's used primarily for recruiting. So we always cross-promote and cross-post our opportunities on this website, and we get way more traffic through Handshake than we do through our regular just state jobs portal that people usually register in. You can interact with students from any public university or any university. Actually, there's a lot of different search criteria that you can use to actually seek out students and communicate with them, and vice versa. They can look for employment opportunities and communicate with you as well. In all of the virtual career fairs that we've attended, those are also facilitated through this platform. So it's a really, really handy tool that we found a lot of value in to be able to reach a broader market of students that we wouldn't normally be able to reach if we were just using our regular state website. So if your agency hasn't taken a look at that yet, I would definitely highly recommend doing that. That sometimes doubles or triples the number of candidates that we get when we have open opportunities that we're looking to recruit. And it always helps too. I like to bring ASU alumni with me, which people really like because I didn't go to ASU, so I can't tell people that. But David has been very helpful when we've done some of these career fairs. You know, those folks are able to connect to the students on kind of a more hands-on level than I am able to do so. So having those folks on board too can be really helpful. A little bit more about how we conduct our recruitment. So after we go to these career fairs, you know, we're starting to get applications. The next step of our process that we use to screen applicants is we use a questionnaire. And I can show you guys what that looks like. So for students that were interested in advancing to kind of that next round, I send this questionnaire out to them, and it stays mostly the same from semester to semester. Obviously, I update the dates on it, but this helps us to get a better feel for whether or not a student is going to be a good fit without having to go through the trouble of doing a phone screen or an actual interview. So there are a couple of areas on here that we find particularly helpful. The first I would say is this expected graduation date. One of the things that's unique about our program is we don't just do summer or single semester opportunities. Even though we call it an intern program, our interns are more part-time employees who happen to go to school. And I actually don't interact with candidates that are graduating in the current semester that we're recruiting in. So when we did our round this fall, I didn't talk to any students that are graduating this fall. There's not enough time for us to teach them all of the things that they need to know. And honestly, it's not a very good return on our investment. Because it is a resource intensive process for us to do recruiting and training and have this really value adding program. We found that we get that best bang for our buck when students are with us for at least 2 semesters. So most of my folks stay with us at least a year. Some people that we're able to bring on as juniors or have some other type of life circumstances where they attend for 5 full years or more. We've had some folks stay up to 2 years, 2.5 years if it's a good fit and they're wanting to continue. That's something that we're able to take advantage of. One of the other areas that helps us quite a bit is looking at what some of the goals the student has for their future career. Typically things for me when we're thinking about fit that are a red flag is when folks tell me that their #1 goal is to work somewhere that's going to pay them the most. I mean, like we talked about, I would love to pay David all the money in the world, but that is not a reality that we live in. So if that's something that's important to a student, that's not bad or wrong, but I know right away that they're probably not going to be a good fit for us, and they're very unlikely to want to stick around with us after graduation. So that wouldn't be a good return on investment for us, nor would it be for the student because they're probably not going to stick around. We also look at, kind of what their preferred work environments are, and we're looking for things that align with what our environment and our culture is. Not to say that any of these things are necessarily bad, but just like we said in the above section, it just helps us get an idea of what the fit's going to be like and how easy it's going to be for that student to kind of fit into our environment. We do also kind of gauge, what their feelings or understanding is about working for the public sector. It's pretty uncommon that I'm going to talk to someone that has no interest in doing public sector. I just came across you guys in a listing. I have no idea what you do. I just need a job. That's not going to be a good return on our investment, and that student's not going to be very likely to want to stay with us. So we don't typically interact with them past this step of the process. And those are kind of the major points of that. So based on how the results of this comes back, and dependent on how many different openings we're filling, we will typically interview anywhere between 4 and 12 students. We typically interview 3 to 5 per opening that we have. We usually have at least 1 opening per semester. Sometimes we have more than that. This current semester, I just replaced all 4 of my interns. So we had 4 new folks start in the span of about 4 weeks, which is something a little new for us, but that's okay. Definitely kept me and David on our feet as we're working through stuff. One of the other tools that we utilize is called the predictive index. This is a really cool behavioral assessment tool that helps us better understand how we should communicate with individuals and what their needs are in a working environment. So what I'm going to pull up is what the results of my predictive index look like. And again, there's no right or wrong answers to any of these things. It just kind of helps us better understand how that individual might fit within our organization and who we should try to pair them up with. So this assessment kind of gives us a view into 4 different areas of someone's natural behavioral tendencies. It's dominance, extroversion, patience, and formality. One of the pieces of how our onboarding process works is we pair each new person with an onboarding buddy that kind of stays with them through the first few weeks to make sure that they know where the bathroom is, that they know how to get their email password reset, that they know what the meetings are that they need to go to. So we typically use these to help us pair complementary personality styles. So we don't have 2 very dominant folks butting heads about who's going to lead the meeting. We tried to put together, like I mentioned, those complementary type personalities so that there's good fit and there's good diversity within our team. One of the other things that's really helpful about this tool is it can help us look into reports for 2 different people. So I'll pull up David's really quickly. This is especially helpful when we have new people starting. I don't know how this algorithm magically works, but it is highly accurate. We use this as a tool to give people pointers about how to interact with each other so that we can really try to diminish some of those awkward interactions that comes with being new and just not knowing how people prefer to be communicated with. So this is a tool that I absolutely love. It helps us quite a bit as we're going through our recruiting process. Some of the other things that we look for when we're recruiting candidates, what we would consider to be a high value candidate. Recruiting interns is not like recruiting full-time employees. And in fact, it's very, very different. Because when folks come into us as full-time employees, obviously there's a set of expectations that we would expect them to be proficient at, behaviors we would expect them to be familiar with, and just things that we really can't expect of an intern to know if no one spent any time, telling him those things. So typically our intern applicants don't have much experience coming in, and that's fine. I don't care about that. We like for their major to be somewhat applicable. So I don't typically hire nuclear physicists because that's not very applicable to what we do. Obviously, we do like supply chain students, but we've also had econ majors come through, business law, international business, public administration, public policy. So there's definitely a wide array. One of the things that I always encourage my folks, like David mentioned, he's been helping us with recruiting, and that's been a good learning experience for him. The number one thing that's important to me is someone with a good attitude, because I cannot teach someone how to have a good attitude. We can teach you about procurement. We can teach you how to write an email. I can teach you how to do Altman Z-scores. I cannot teach a student how to have a good attitude and want to learn. So that's something that's highly important to me. We also look for good personality or fit. We have a very tightly knit team that this intern group falls under. And if this individual isn't going to be a good fit in that environment, then there's no reason for me to destroy my own team for the benefit of someone new coming in. So we definitely look for someone that it's easy for us to envision how they would fit into this. Like we talked about before, we're looking for someone that has a desire to serve the public or help people, because we know that those folks are the most likely to either want to stay on with us if we have an opportunity, or at least stay in the public sector once they graduate. And also someone that's interested in that longer tenure, that has a semester or two of availability. I do see that we had a question come in the chat from Rebecca that says, what percentage of your time do you spend on this program? My answer is it varies greatly depending on the time of the year and how many vacancies we have. In a regular time where we're not doing any recruiting, it's probably about 25% of my time. When we're in a heavy recruiting season, that might go up to 30 or 40 or 50%. It really depends, but we've seen that time of mine and the rest of the team that's invested into this program pays huge dividends, especially in an environment where I'm sure you guys have experienced where the job market right now is bananas. It's super competitive and hard to get people. This discussion around succession planning and bringing in new talent and being able to ensure that your organization can continue on as you lose people is exponentially important. So even though sometimes it is a significant contribution of my time, it's necessary. It's necessary for the continuation of our organization and to be able to successfully continue serving our agency customers and the various unique needs that they have. That's a good question, Rebecca. Oops, you could have told me it wasn't in full screen mode. I hope that didn't look too funny while we were talking about that. But moving on to program structure, just wanted to make sure I didn't skip. So talking about the structure of our program. So when we're talking to prospective interns or other people that are kind of interested in our program, our elevator speech is that our program is made up of these three main components. The first is contract lifecycle shadowing. So we pair up the intern with an assigned contract manager and a specific solicitation that they're able to shadow from the scope of work development all the way through when the RFP is put together, through the focus groups, the evaluation, the award. That intern is able to participate throughout the entirety of that process. And while some of those tasks could be just administrative in nature, we try to make sure that those contract managers are having those additional conversations about, hey, here's the important things that you need to look for in this meeting, or, oh, when this happened, that was actually quite unique. It means this, you should look out for this in the next meeting. So there is good benefit to be gained from that. The second section of our program is soft skills development. So we have an in-house training suite that we've developed for various different things that we'll talk about here in a little bit on another slide. And then we also have our help and project requests. So anyone in our division can request help from the interns on something. We do have a process to ensure that they don't get too many requests to just take meeting notes, but we'll talk about that a little bit more on a future slide too. So some of the tools that we use that help with our program structure, and this isn't just in our intern team, these things over here in particular, we do have a daily huddle, which when we're now working virtually is exponentially more important for us to be able to connect and know what's going on. So we do have a daily huddle, and I'll quickly just pull that up. So it's just a quick 15-minute stand-up where we talk about what went well yesterday, what things are coming up today, is there anything that people need help with? You know, how much is your workload? Do you need help with things? And one of the most important things that I absolutely love about our huddle is we get to talk about successes and celebrate some of the good things that have happened. We talk about personal successes too, and that helps us get to know some of our new folks better, especially in this virtual world where those unplanned water cooler talks don't happen. It's important that we try to find ways to facilitate those interactions. Another part that we do as part of our daily huddle is we have this electronic flow board that we use through Trello. I won't go through this too in depth, and maybe I won't at all. Okay, there we go. So this is basically just an electronic flow board that helps me track all the projects that they're working on and what step of the process they're in. It's really nice because each of the cards has a place for them to update. That was probably a bad example. Each of the cards has a place where we can update what the most recent actions were of that. We can assign action items to other people. This is a super helpful digital tool to use if your team is working remote. I would definitely highly recommend. So hopping back over to our slide, some of the other things that we like to promote to people about the unique opportunities associated with our program, like we talked about, is our interns. I don't really consider them to be interns. You know, they're an extension of our full-time team. They lead projects, they help on high visibility work. You know, we treat them just like they were any other member of the team. And I think that's a really great opportunity for them. We offer those longer term employment terms, more than just one semester. We give them an opportunity to do practical application of lean principles and methodologies. This picture right here was when my original group and I all got our lean white belts together. So that was kind of fun. All of the group now has done their yellow belts. We also do a really fun waste Gemba where we visit. This is the Chick-fil-A that has the fastest drive-through in Arizona. So we talk about processing and identifying waste. And that's kind of a fun way to get an introduction to lean as well. One of the other things, and I'm sure David might tell you that maybe he didn't enjoy this very much, but I think a benefit of our program is that we do also offer a lot of freedom and flexibility. You know, I give our interns a lot of leeway to make their own mistakes and learn about things. You know, I'm not always going to jump in and save them from a sticky situation. You know, we teach them the skills to deal with that. And I'm going to give them the opportunity to practice in a controlled environment where we can offer feedback so that when that happens again in their future professional life, you know, they're very well equipped to deal with those things. So I know it's stressful for you guys sometimes, but I think that's a really good learning opportunity where you have a lot of flexibility to determine how you're going to do your projects, you know, what decisions you're going to make, who you're going to interact with, you know, and how those things are going to work kind of throughout your day. Talking a little bit more about our mentoring and shadowing opportunities. I know we talked a little bit already about assigning the interns to a specific solicitation and contract manager, but the interns also get the opportunity, to participate on a lot of different projects that come through our operations team. And I'm sure, like was the case in any of your other offices, there were a lot of opportunities during the pandemic to do projects. So these are just a few that we were involved in. We had this really fun first year where we ran a warehouse out of our office building that David was very directly involved in and helped quite a bit. We had the opportunity to help with the vaccination site at the Cardinal Stadium. This one down here, this is Yelena was an intern with us last year. We did this very large project where we distributed PPE and sanitary supplies to over 100 different domestic violence and homeless shelters across the state. And she actually co-led this project with one of our full-time folks. And without her, we would not have been able to do it. It wouldn't have been possible. And she really added a lot of value to that as well. And then I'm going to let you talk about this last one, David, because this is a project that you got to co-lead during your first couple of months with us.
Yeah, of course. So the Mask Up project was actually one of the very first projects that I worked on that provided immediate value to the state of Arizona. I was the lead intern for this project, and the interns were tasked with creating a phone ordering process. We provided a customer callback option. We helped people submit orders for cloth masks. We presented weekly metrics to the key project stakeholders, which was Haynes, the Department of Health Services, our operations team. But all in all, this project was a great opportunity for the intern team to be a part of. And this was just one of many projects, like Joe mentioned, that the intern team collaborated on. Some of the other projects that we collaborated on were the PPE and supplies to all Arizona shelters, assisting with a huge PPE solicitation, creating fun processes with packaging and inventorying over 200,000 masks, and so on. But us interns, we really had a lot of accountability with these projects, which I overall found very instrumental with my professional growth coming, especially starting like a month ago before starting with all these projects. So yeah.
Thanks, David. And like David said, there were so many projects. And honestly, without our intern team, we wouldn't have been able to finish a single one of them. And with their expertise and their very creative problem solving and their like high work ethic, they knocked it out of the park on every single one of these projects. We got direct recognition from the governor's office about how well they went and how well it served the customers of that project. So I know Ed, our state procurement administrator, was very, very proud of the value that they were able to add to all of these critical projects for Arizona. So moving on to talk a little bit about our soft skills program. This part of the program is my personal favorite because my background is not in procurement or supply chain. So this is something that I feel like I'm a little bit more knowledgeable about, but we do have a full suite of trainings that I developed. There are 6 different trainings that we have listed on here. So we go through written and verbal communication. We have a workplace professionalism, resume and interview workshop, workplace organization, and meeting facilitation. So we go through just like a lot of CLA things that I'm sure you guys have done, where we talk about, this is how you write a professional email to someone you've never met before. This is how you interact with a coworker that's asking you to do something that's outside of your job scope. This is how you handle a phone call with an angry customer who's wrong, but is on the phone with you angry. So we go through and talk through those things, and then at the end we have a hands-on application portion where we either do role playing, or they have the opportunity to actually write some of the documents or kind of practice some of those skills in a controlled environment. And again, David would probably say that some of those were very uncomfortable, but valuable lessons were learned, and being able to practice some of those skills. And some of the best recognition that I feel like we've gotten from doing this is for the graduating interns that very unfortunately we didn't have positions to place into. They are very highly attractive candidates to the outside world because of these things, because they can do these things so well when they leave. Whatever company they end up at doesn't have to spend time teaching David how to use the conference room phone or how to make a recommendation to a higher up executive leader. So these things I feel like are very, very valuable that interns don't normally get in some of those experiences. But David, did you want to mention anything else about this?
Yeah, of course. So the soft skills trainings have actually helped tremendously in almost all aspects of my professionalism. It has impacted the way I communicate with my team members, both written and verbal, how to effectively lead a meeting, proper resume building, and overall just how to conduct myself in a professional setting. So as an intern coming into this position, I had little to no prior professional experience, and the only professional knowledge I really had was just to be polite. So, the soft skills development portion of our internship program has really just helped myself and current and future interns with just effective professional practices that college really does not really brush up on at all. So for example, meeting facilitation. Before my internship, whenever I had group projects in college, our meetings would be very ineffective and just a waste of everyone's time. So after the soft skills training on actually how to facilitate a meeting, it was very easy to transfer what I learned to those college group projects, which I found immediately to be effective and not waste everyone's time sitting on a call waiting with no one talking. So I'm sure most of you had college group projects but it really just consists of no one wanting to talk or take initiative or even participate. So these soft skills trainings really help in almost all aspects of how I conduct myself.
Thank you, David. One other thing that I'll mention about our soft skills program to tie this back to recruiting a little bit, there are many things that we might observe about an intern candidate that indicates a lack of understanding some of these topics. I think some of the most prevalent issues that we come across with today's interns is really issues with social media and things being public that just shouldn't be public. And if I was hiring for a full-time person, that might be a deal breaker for me. But as we're hiring interns, I just see that as an opportunity to help them improve. You know, I look for potential in interns, not necessarily what they already have coming in, because the purpose of our program is to help them learn and grow. So folks that have that most opportunity to learn and grow and have a great attitude, those are usually the most highly attractive candidates that we like to bring into our program. So next thing we'll talk about quickly is our academic partner collaboration. So we do have a pretty strong relationship with the supply chain program at ASU. Like I mentioned, we're very fortunate to have one of the top ranked supply chain programs in the nation right in our backyard. I know that's not the case for every state, but every state I'm sure has a university nearby that has some corresponding majors that you might be able to interact with. We do interact with the public and nonprofit procurement professor that collaborates with NASPO. That's kind of how we got connected into that relationship. We do also regularly give presentations to that public procurement course, and some semesters we do also get to participate in some of the more 300 level supply chain courses. We also get a really unique opportunity that David actually played a really large role in this semester to collaborate with research and negotiation students, where they do a project to study. David, you can explain this better than I can. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, of course. So one of the supply chain courses is research and negotiation. And one of our big semester projects is to reach out to an organization or a company and do a category spend report. So I actually helped out with a few college groups, and I actually did my group on the state of Arizona. But basically, there's a series of a bunch of analysis that they analyze throughout the contract or through a spend category that provides a demand analysis, spend analysis, supply market analysis, and college groups for this class can reach out to our state procurement office to get those data points and to get that contract set, because a lot of college groups don't really plan accordingly. They wait until last minute. So we actually have a very good relationship with the professor. So he sends those groups to us. So we help them out, and we have a good partnership with those groups. And we actually get a lot of value out of that because they analyze where we can kind of improve.
Thanks so much, David. Yeah, we've been able to do that for the past 5 or 6 semesters, and that's been a great opportunity for students that would never come into contact with public procurement to at least know that we exist. And to some students have actually become interested in our program through that medium. So that's been a good kind of evangelizing activity that we're able to participate in. We do also have a pretty strong relationship with just ASU Career Services and the Public Policy and Public Administration program. Like I mentioned, most of the public entities that are associated with those programs, I don't know if this is an Arizona thing, but it's very heavily public safety and corrections related. So when we showed up at one of these internship fairs, they were very eager for us to do more things with them. So we participate on a lot of panel discussions. You know, we've had one-on-ones with public policy, public administration students. That's really been a good gateway for us to interact with some more folks that don't come through the supply chain that are also interested in public procurement. I see we do have another question in the chat from Rebecca that asks about tracking program alumni. I don't have an official metric for that, but if I had to give an anecdotal number, it's probably about 50-50. I think probably about half of our folks stay in public procurement and the other half go private sector. We've been having, I say issue, but I guess it's not the worst issue, but City of Phoenix has been stealing all of our people recently, including a couple of our recent interns, which it hurts when they leave, but if they're moving on to another public opportunity, like that's still a win in my mind. You know, they're still on our team, they're on our side, even if they aren't working directly for us. But yeah, I say it's probably about 50-50. And then David, do you want to talk a little bit more about what your experience in the program has been like?
Yeah, of course. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about my internship experience, a little bit more in depth. So the most meaningful experience that I had as an intern was actually the opportunity to collaborate on such a wide variety of fun projects. And just really to be able to provide an input. You know, this principle is actually what really stood out about our program compared to others, because as an intern, you get so much exposure to all the different business processes. And instead of the typical 8 or 12-week internship where you only focus on one project, our program allows exponential growth to those interns that come through, because honestly, having an internship that is only 12 weeks long is not as impactful, because once you learn all the different processes, your time is up. As well, coming into this internship, I had very little knowledge on the operational side of state government, and this internship really shed light on the public sector and lit so many bulbs in my head, because it is truly a learning experience rather than just a mundane, repetitive job. You know, I learned about public procurement, the procurement process from start to finish, professionalism, how to effectively work within a team, and the list really just goes on and on. So for those other procurement offices considering hiring an intern or starting an internship program, the best recommendation I could really give you is to give the intern exposure and involvement. Some places view interns as a way just to dump administrative work off, and that is far from a value-adding experience. From my perspective, an internship really should be a good resource for employers to kind of tap into for full-time positions. And if the intern does not have a meaningful experience, it will be very hard for retention and would be a waste of resources and time for the employer.
Awesome. Thanks, David. I appreciate that. And we were very fortunate to be able to snag David this summer, but even before he graduated. You know, he was such a high performer in our intern program, and an opportunity came up to keep him full-time. And I'm glad City of Phoenix didn't get him first, or any of our other contract teams. So we're very, very happy to have him as part of our full-time operations team. So to talk a little bit about our program results. So since we've made these changes, we're going into year 3 right now. We've had approximately a 50% successful conversion rate from intern to full-time team member. These 4 very attractive smiling faces over here are our current full-time members that came through our intern program. So right now we have 4. David's one of them. Also, Amber Holmes came through our program and is now our cooperative and special project manager. She's done excellent after coming out of our program. She's actually the lead on our state HR system replacement right now. So I think that speaks volumes about her capability and how we were able to retain that really great talent coming through. Carter also came through our program and helps Amber on co-op. He got a great opportunity to be able to jump in right before the pandemic hit and really make some meaningful improvements in our co-op program. And then Miss Erica here just got hired on full-time to be a contract manager over the summer. She's been really great in the program too. She started just, I think 4 or 5 months after David did. So did a lot of kind of the major pandemic projects with us as well. One of the other neat things that we like to talk about, some of the results that we've achieved from our program, is for each time that we're able to convert one of these interns to full-time, and I don't have to spend my time doing another competitive recruitment for a full-time person, I have about a $6,000 cost avoidance for not having to go through that recruitment process again. For example, when David started with us a couple months ago, I think the position was vacant 1 week until David started with us, because he's worked with us, he's done great things with us. I don't need to waste my time going out and finding another candidate because he already works for us. And our HR rules allow for us to do a non-competitive process that way. So that saves us a lot of time on the back end. Before we updated our program, each semester when we did recruiting, we would get maybe 20 to 40 applicants. Now we typically get 50 to 100 or so. We're down a little bit this semester because I know the job market is a little crazy, but I think we still got 80 or 90 this semester. So we have ample great candidates to choose from. Usually we have a very hard decision to make when we're hiring folks because we do have such great options. We are very excited to be able to, through NASPO and the Cronin program, be kind of recognized for the program work that we've been doing. Also within our agency, our intern program is considered to kind of be the best in class example, and we do offer some consulting services to the other divisions who are considering implementing an intern program or changing their current one. And these new changes that we've implemented have resulted in very high satisfaction rate of both our interns and our full-time staff. It took a little bit of convincing for the full-time staff because they just kind of wanted to work them into the ground. But now that we've been able to retain some of these really great candidates that have come through, I think that they have kind of come around. and seeing the benefits of that as well. And one of the greatest benefits, I would say, of the way that our program runs is we have such an awesome team culture. Our team is very tightly knit. There is no problem that exists in the state of Arizona that this group of people can't solve. And I've been really, really proud to kind of see the great work that they've done, not only during the pandemic, but during kind of more regular work too. But this is a group of people that you want on the other end of your backbone, you know, when you have a problem. So definitely, we've seen some really good results from the program. So talking a little bit about what some of our takeaways are, we made these changes and so can you. This is kind of our infomercial, but to talk about a few things that you might be able to consider within your own state offices, take that first step, even if it's small. You don't have to have a whole program, or you don't have to do any of the things that we did, but do what you can do. You know, if that first step is trying to reach out to your local university, do that. If you've already done that, you know, try to build a relationship with another entity that might be able to funnel candidates your way. We did not implement these changes overnight. We did it piece by piece over time, and over 3 years, we've kind of done a lot of different things, but even just a small change can make a big impact. Build those relationships with your academic partners. You know, we need new talent coming into the public procurement profession so that we're able to have that good succession planning going forward. Look for those best fit students with good attitudes and plenty of potential. I know this is going to sound counterintuitive, but don't be distracted by low GPAs. Don't be distracted by bad soft skills or poor interviewers. Some of those folks turn into our best candidates and best full-time employees when they're able to graduate. We're looking for people that have good potential and good attitude. If you don't remember anything else from today, I would hope that it's this, but our number 4, interns should not be used as temps. If you're looking to augment your staff resource availability and nothing else, do not get an intern, hire a temp. If anything, to some of Rebecca's questions earlier, it's more work than not having a program. It's very rewarding, but if you're not willing to put in the work for it to be a valuable experience for the intern, I would not recommend that you do it. Your time's better spent just hiring a temp. And then the last kind of takeaway would be to build your program using components of existing best-in-class programs. There's nothing magical about what we've done. We begged, borrowed, and stole from existing programs and other things that worked well. Actually, a lot of the components of our program, I first heard about at a NASPO conference a couple years ago when we were at the, I forget what it's even called, but the Procurement U Academic Partners. We heard a bunch of great keynote speakers, and I vividly remember leaving that conference and calling one of my full-time folks and saying, we have to do these things. You know, these are things that I think are going to really help our program. So definitely you don't have to start with nothing. There are other people that have gone through the process that you can take things from. We're happy to share anything that we've done. We haven't copyrighted anything or have any intellectual property. We're happy to share any of the lessons that we've learned so far through our process. And that is kind of all we've prepared. So if there's any other questions, I haven't been able to see the Q&A, but I can see the chat. I think we do have some time to do those.
So I have a few. So I know you've established meaningful relationships with the supply chain management program at ASU, but are there other academic programs or fields like public administration or other government-centered programs that you've considered for recruiting besides just supply chain?
So we do have a pretty good relationship also with ASU's public administration and public policy program. That's more of the program isn't graduate level, but typically the candidates that we get out of that relationship are graduate students. And that's been a place where we've been able to broaden kind of the diversity of the majors of the candidates that we're considering. I know that that's not always a common major choice at some universities as well. General business works very well for us as well. People that are studying politics, economics, you know, really any of those more general things, any of those folks could benefit from understanding more about how public procurement works. And even if they don't end up working in public procurement, which we want them to, but if they don't, you know, it's still beneficial for us to have people on the outside that understand how things work. You know, if they're going to be your future suppliers submitting a proposal to an RFP, like, great, they understand how your process works and they're going to give you a good proposal that isn't a bunch of junk because they don't understand how the government works. So we like it less when we lose folks to the private sector, but I still think that's a valuable thing for us to have those people out and about that understand how we do things.
Excellent. And kind of going along with that, building the relationship with the academic partners, your partnership with ASU isn't just a one-way street. Could you talk about a few of the ways that the Central Procurement Office contributes to the university's program? This is the sort of thing, you know, that maybe some of our members could use to convince some of their local academic institutions to build a better relationship.
Yeah, so just like David talked about a little bit earlier, one of the best ways that we're able to do that is through some direct project work with some of the classes. I'm sure every supply chain program at every university has classes that have case study type of project work. One of the best benefits about working with a public entity is that all of our information is public. We have to give it to you. You know, if you're working with a private corporation, oftentimes they're not as willing to share data or other information. Every state is beholden to public record or FOIA laws. So not that we try to keep it from anyone, but there's much more data available when you work with us on those projects. Because we are finding ourselves in this very challenging job market recruiting phase, we're eager to meet new young talent. So it's a very mutually beneficial symbiotic relationship for us to help you with coursework and for you to introduce your students to us so that we know that they exist. We do also participate in some presentations in some of the classes where we're able to talk about how public procurement differs from private and just how supply chain and operations kind of plays into the work that we do every day. I haven't run into a professor yet that hasn't been very happy for us to take up one of their course periods with content. We have canned presentations. I've done this a number of times. So they're eager to get us in there to do things and vice versa. So it's definitely a really beneficial relationship. And David, I see you have your hand up. Did you want to add to that?
Yeah, so I just wanted to provide one specific example. So for one of the ASU groups that I'm currently working with, or the project actually ended last week, but that I was working with, after sharing all this information and kind of going over the public procurement process, she was actually very interested in what we had to offer. And she even asked if there's any contract manager positions open because she was like super interested in, like, she never knew that we existed until this project really opened the doors for her. Then she was just like, wow, this is super interesting. Like, and she was interested in our internship program as well, but unfortunately she graduates in December. But she said that she's going to keep her eye out on the AZ State Job Board's website because we offer a lot of cool things that the private sector does not. So I just wanted to add that in.
Thanks, David.
All right. Well, thank you. That concludes today's presentation. I want to thank our presenters, Jill and David, for the valuable information you've shared today and for working with us here at NASPO to bring it to the membership. Thank you all for attending this webinar today. You'll all receive a follow-up email containing today's slides and materials. Remember, this webinar qualifies as one contact hour for your continuing education. To receive your certificate, simply fill out the survey in your browser window once you've exited the webinar. This webinar has been recorded and it will be available for viewing on the NASPO YouTube page in the coming days. Any questions entered into the chat and Q&A boxes have been saved, and we will try and follow up via email for any ones not addressed during the presentation. Thank you again to our wonderful presenters, and thank you to our guests. Everybody have a great day.